Day 3. Good to see you. We are halfway through the success sprint. I don't know about you all, but I'm not an athlete. So sometimes when I sprint, I get tired. So if you're getting a little tired, if you're finding the challenges a little harder as we go along, that's okay. That's very normal. You are not the only one. Welcome. We've got people from joining all over the world. Okay, so excuse me, before we kick off with today's content, I would love to hear from you. What have you learned from the success sprint so far? Pop it in the chat. Let me know what's the one key takeaway. You can put an essay if you like, or if you just like to put one word, that's fine too, so that we get an understanding of what's the most important thing that you've learned over the first 3 days of the success sprint. And if you've done today's challenge, feel free to share the person that you have decided to focus on for day 3 of the challenge. So if you haven't already read the email, if you haven't gone through the process just yet, let me talk you through it. So it is hump day. We're halfway along. There's an optional dance, if you wanted to get involved in that. I just like to put that in because I feel like it's a good idea. I always like to listen to Taylor Swift when I'm trying to get the energy to work through one of the challenges in the sprint. So we talked about the power of setting a goal and changing our password so that that's a subconscious reminder multiple times a day of that goal. We talked about the process of going through stop, start, continue, which allows us to refocus, reassess, and reallocate our energy towards what is working and what could in fact work better for us in the future. So today we're talking about the fact that success leaves clues. Now this is a success sprint, so that's what we're focused on. A lot of us, I know, are sprinting specifically in relation to your career. So feel free, and I know some of you though are success sprinting for things that you're looking to change in your life. Thank you to everyone who's reached out to me on the Facebook group. I know we've got a lot of mums who are on maternity leave at the moment. So welcome to you all. I appreciate all of your messages. So I want to talk about this concept of success leaving clues and why it's important to take a moment and think about this. This is like quite a fun exercise. I even gave you permission to go Googling, although I didn't want it to be completely aimless. I wanted to give you some structure. So today's challenge is all about thinking about who's someone who you really admire. Now you can go big picture and you can choose, Oprah, Jacinda Ardern, Greta Thunberg, you can choose people like that who are really well known, or you might like to choose someone in your life. Right? It might be a former boss, a former colleague. It might be someone who sits on a board and you read about them in the paper occasionally. It may be someone in your industry who sits on an industry body and you just think, I just really like the way they do business, right? So have a think about who is that person for you. And then I want you to reflect on why are they impressive? What qualities about them and their career are impressive to you? Because sometimes the things we admire in other people are the things that we ourselves want to start aspiring to and want to start sprinting towards, right? So if we can, sometimes it's hard. If I said to you, what do you want to be doing in the next 5 years? What's that longer term goal? It's a lot to think about. So I like to steal ideas from other people and watch what other people around me are doing, because sometimes that gives me a prompt as to some of the ideas that I could start to think about. And it gives me a framework to start to brainstorm about some of the choices I might want to make to get towards where I really want to go. Okay, so we're going to think about who is that person in our life that we admire. And then we're going to research specifically about what's the journey that they've taken so far, right? What are the steps that they've taken? Has there been any twists and turns in their journey? So sometimes it's interesting to reflect, and someone in the group sent me a private message talking about maternity leave and thinking about having another child and when was the right time. And we were chatting about that on the chat. And one of the things I asked her to do was, for this challenge today, think about someone in her career who she admires who has taken time out to have kids. How did they navigate that? What did that process look like for them? Because often we think that these challenges that we'll face will be all encompassing and it might completely derail our life and our career. But when we look at the examples others have set for us, sometimes it helps give us a bastion of hope that it is possible, and what can we learn from the journey that they took, right? So what are the experiences that these people that you admire, what are the experiences they've had in their life? And can you identify what has been their key to success? Is there a really clear secret source? You know, if they're famous, there might be a biography, there may be news articles that's been written about them. If they're less well-known, you may know people who know them. You may want to really extend today's challenge, and you might want to reach out to this person, right? Especially if I can reflect in my life, you know, certain mentors throughout my career who taught me a lot, and I really admire the journey that they've taken. Because one woman in particular, a mentor of mine, Kathy, she's lived her journey in her career with real authenticity. You know, she never lost who she was. She never lost the core of who she wanted to be, despite the success she's had in her career. And she's had highs and lows, ups and downs in her personal life, and that's impacted her career. But what I love about her and what I admire when I did this exercise is she's never made any bones about that, right? Like, that's part of who she is, and that's part of her story. And she's very open and transparent about that. And I really admire that. So what that teaches me, and what this may teach you from this exercise, is then how can I, in my career, apply those values that I've seen her role model for me? How can I be a leader who lives with authenticity, leads with authenticity, is very open and vulnerable about what's going on in my personal life, and the fact that, yes, it may impact my career, but it's not the end of the world. So have a little bit of a think about that. And the other thing, this is probably the most important thing about today's challenge. What are the similarities that you have with that other person? So people may describe certain people as resilient, as tough, as optimistic. Are there any of those words or descriptions that you identify with, that you actually share with these people who you admire? Because what's really interesting is, for our brains, when we can start to see patterns, and when we can associate ourselves with a positive pattern in a role model and someone that we admire, that's very powerful, because it gives our mind, and we've talked about neuroplasticity a bit, it gives those synapse pathways in our mind an opportunity to focus and to continue steering towards that goal and that success, because our brain has learned, well, hang on, yes, I really think that person's great, they're amazing, they're impressive, they're an icon. I have that quality that they have. People describe me as optimistic too. I'm very organized, they're very organized. You know, they are a huge advocate for social issues. I'm a huge advocate for social issues. So it can just be one small quality that you share with them. It might be that you both grew up in a small town, you know, there can be lots of different similarities, but when you can make that connection, it helps us establish that mindset to say, you know what, that dream that I had, that dream that I'm talking about and thinking about a lot now because it's my password, that is possible. Other people have done it before me. I can tread a path and I can get there too. So I'm more than happy to take any questions that you have in the chat. Pop them in there and we can get to them. We try and keep these short and sharp because I know that your time is precious and time is money. But don't forget to post in the Facebook group and let me know who you chose and what's your similarity with the person that you have chosen. Quick little update from the chat. So people are talking about, in terms of the challenge and their takeaways so far, the nudge theory works. Baby steps to create big effective habits. Okay, so don't hold on to the past, look towards the future. Structured, consistent evaluation leads to continual growth. That is awesome. That's a great point, Katarina. Thanks for sharing that. And reflecting on our own strengths and growth opportunities. So that's really interesting, Stephanie. And I actually had an email from someone yesterday about this specifically. So the purpose of this challenge is to spread towards success. We actually run a program as well, the Career Level Up program, where we go more deeply into some of these issues. And one of the things that we talk specifically about is our strengths, and by virtue of that, our weaknesses. And I'm not sure if some of you are familiar with Gallup's Strength Finders, but if you're not, that's one of the modules that we do in the program, because it's very, very powerful to understand our strengths and where we should be playing. And when we know that, it helps us figure out maybe where are some of the lesser strengths and how can we surround ourselves with people to bolster those areas too. So we dive into that further in the course, but that's such a great place to reflect on, Stephanie, your own strengths and growth opportunities. I love the way that you framed that as well. Vulnerability. So Janelle's saying here that vulnerability is something that's really important to her too. Yeah. So the other thing, if you haven't done it already, screenshot your person and make it your phone background. This is a nudge, which you all are au fait with now, because this is going to nudge you as well, right? So when you're at dinner, when you're like texting, waiting for the bus or the subway or whatever, it's going to pop up and you're going to be like, oh yeah, I totally have similarities with, who can we choose? Who's someone very impressive? Maybe you are in business and maybe you admire the business that Whitney, the CEO of Bumble, has created, right? So to see that image, so you can just screenshot an image from the internet, make that your phone background. Or if you want, in the challenge, we ask you to write down those 3 things that you've researched about the person, right? So you're going to write down their key experiences that shape their lives, what seems to be their secret sauce, and the similarities you share with them. So you could also just write them in a little note, screenshot that, and make that your background too. Because again, that's going to nudge you to remind you of those awesome qualities that you have, the fact that you share that with someone else who's extraordinarily successful. And so by virtue of that, that's one link getting you that little bit closer towards the success that they've achieved as well. If you've got multiple people, that's okay. You can do this for a couple of people. We try and keep the challenges to 5 minutes. So that's why I get you to choose one. But if you want to choose one famous person, one mentor, or someone that you know in your life, you can do that too. And as I say, if you want extension, if you want to be bold, reach out to that person, because you never know. Even if they're famous, why don't you just send them a DM on Instagram and just say, hey, I'm in this challenge by PepTalkHer. I just wanted to let you know that we had to choose someone inspirational and I chose you. They might write back, they might not, you never know. But if you don't put it out there, you'll certainly never know. If you have a hard time finding anyone, just have a think, Monica, about like, what are some interesting books that you've read lately? What are some articles you've read with interesting people in there? And there might be some ideas for you there as to people that you might want to research further. Does the person have to be real or fictional? Listen, if you'd like to choose a character from The Simpsons, you can go ahead. If that's who you admire, you go for it. I don't mind. It can be whoever you like. Because, you know, even fictional characters, we learn a lot about them, don't we? And their life and their qualities and their values. So I'm not gonna be an adjudicator on that, Anag. You can make that decision either way. You could do one of each if you like. So this is a good point from Monica, saying that it can be challenging to relate to people that you don't personally know. Totally. It can be really hard because you don't know them. But what I'm asking you to do is to research them. So just think about someone who, like, even from a distance, that maybe you admire or think that they've had a very successful career, or, you know, maybe they do some great work in the not-for-profit space and you really admire that. You know, maybe they're a bit of a trailblazer in their sales industry, you know, in a male-dominated industry. And maybe you think, wow, that must have been really tough, right? So you don't have to relate to them necessarily, but you have to admire them in some way, shape, or form. And then I want you to just do a little bit of stalking, online only. Obviously, we're not in favor of IRL stalking, online stalking only, please. So we're gonna research those people, right? And see what you can find out about them online. Okay, so this is a great point, and this is a great point to end on, Claire. For her, she's saying it's someone less successful, but more balanced. And so, you know, when we think about success, you can define that however you like. So success for me is not working, you know, 20 hours a day. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. But some people do, and they love it. And that's totally cool, right? And for other people, success is flying business class. Success is traveling for work. For some people, success is raising healthy, balanced children. For some people, success is volunteering at an animal shelter. You get to define that. I'm not going to tell you what success is. You can decide, right? Your definition of success is different to mine, which is different to Janelle's, which is different to Suda's as well. So you get to define that. And I love that Claire's thinking actively about people that, in her mind, success are people who have that balance, you know? And when I think about my mentor, Kathy, who I mentioned earlier, certainly I think of her as successful professionally, but honestly, it probably leans more into the personal, because of that balance that she managed to find. She worked hard, but she played hard, and she kind of, you know, she raised 2 amazing kids as a single mom and all those kinds of things. So I think that that's very impressive, right? Is she on Fortune's 100 most impressive people list? No, she's not. But to me, she is successful and someone that I admire. So I'm going to leave you with that today. Go forth and research. Let me know in the Facebook group who you have chosen. And don't forget as well, by the way, and let me just If you haven't already, we've got prizes. Because what's a challenge without a prize? I'm going to pop the Facebook group link in the chat. So we have prizes for the challenge. If you complete the challenge, if you turn up to the live call, and if you post about your challenge success sprint on social media, you get 10 points for each of those things. So my team are tracking those points, and we are going to announce the winner at the finale coaching session. So keep an eye out for that. There's 3 prizes. One of them is a one-on-one coaching session with me. One of them is a scholarship to our Career Level Up program, and one of them is a bundle of books from our favorite female authors. So keep an eye out for that. Make sure that you post in the group and connect with everyone as well. There's a really great post in the Facebook group. Someone started it with all different LinkedIn handles so that you can grow your network throughout the 5-day challenge as well, which I think is such a wonderful idea. So I'm thrilled that you're all connecting outside of this Zoom as well. Katerina, it is a treat to see you here. All of these lovely faces. We had about 100 people on and off the call today. Thank you. We will be back the same time tomorrow. Keep an eye out in your inbox. Tomorrow's challenge is a fun one. You're going to like it. If you've got any questions, send me an email, hello@peptalkher.com. I'll pop it in the chat too. And we will see you back here same time tomorrow. Thanks, y'all. Bye.